There's something interesting about people. On the surface, they can look like friends, supporters, or even family who want the best for you. But underneath, sometimes there's another story. And one of the most overlooked but powerful truths in life is this: God has a way of revealing fake people in your life. And he does it in ways you don't always see coming. It's not about paranoia. It's not about mistrusting everyone around you. It's about paying attention to the lessons, the patterns, and the clarity God gives you when someone isn't who they claim to be. Most of us, at some point, have been burned by someone we thought was genuine, a friend who turned out to be a rival, a family member who smiled in front of you but spoke against you behind closed doors, a co-worker who played nice until an opportunity came along and they pushed you out of the way. And the first instinct is to be angry at them. But think about this: maybe the exposure was a blessing. Maybe God didn't remove that person to punish you, but to protect you. When people show their true colors, it's not always because you went looking for the truth. Sometimes God lets things happen, conversations slip, actions come to the surface, and motives reveal themselves in ways you couldn't have staged even if you tried. That's divine orchestration. That's God saying, look closely. This one is not for you. And here's the catch: fake people aren't always loud about being fake. They're subtle. They blend in. They know how to smile, how to show up at the right times, how to say the right words. But God knows the heart. You don't. I don't. None of us can see inside someone's soul, but he can. And when he decides you don't need that person in your inner circle anymore, he allows situations that force the mask to come off. That's why you can't be afraid of losing people. If someone exits your life after being revealed for who they really are, don't chase them. Don't beg them to come back. Don't patch up something God himself tore apart. Because sometimes we want to hold on to people longer than we should, and the very thing we're clinging to is the very thing keeping us from peace. You ever notice how fake people slip up when blessings start coming your way? It's easy for someone to clap for you when you're down because you're not a threat. But when you start growing, when your life starts shifting, that's when the silence comes. That's when the shade begins. That's when the jokes start feeling like more than jokes. And suddenly, God lets you see it. He lets you feel that energy. He lets you hear those words differently. It's not coincidence, it's clarity. The mistake most people make is ignoring those signs. You excuse them. You tell yourself they didn't mean it. You bury the feeling. But the more you ignore it, the louder God makes it until you can't unsee it anymore. Because fake people don't just reveal themselves once. God will keep showing you until you finally accept the truth. And sometimes it hurts, doesn't it? It hurts to realize someone you trusted wasn't trustworthy. It hurts to know loyalty wasn't mutual. It hurts to feel like you were playing by rules they never agreed to. But here's what I want you to remember. When God removes someone from your life, he's not just exposing them. He's promoting you. He's making space. He's cleaning the room for people who actually deserve a seat at your table. Think about the story of Judas. Jesus fed him, taught him, walked with him, gave him every chance to be loyal, and Judas still betrayed him. If even Jesus had someone close who turned out to be fake, what makes us think we're immune? But notice something important. Judas had to be revealed. The betrayal had to happen because it set the stage for what came next. God didn't stop it, he used it. And sometimes that's what's happening in your life. God lets the betrayal play out not because he doesn't care, but because he knows it's a setup for your next chapter. Fake people expose themselves in silence, in envy, in inconsistency, in the little digs they think you won't notice. And instead of you fighting back or trying to fix it, sometimes all you need to do is step back and let God handle the exposure. Because nothing is hidden from him, and what's real doesn't need defending. You want to know one of the clearest ways God reveals fake people. Watch how they act when you say no. Genuine people respect your boundaries. Fake people get offended, guilt you, or distance themselves when you stop being convenient to them. That's revelation. That's God saying, this person wasn't here for you. They were here for what you gave them. With another way, watch how they handle your success. Real friends celebrate. Fake friends compete. Real friends clap when you win. Fake friends shrink, change the subject, or throw shade. God allows these reactions to come out so you can see who's truly aligned with your journey. And sometimes it's not even about their behavior toward you. Pay attention to how they treat others. Someone who gossips to you will gossip about you. Someone who betrays others for gain will eventually betray you too. God puts those glimpses in front of you so you're not blindsided later. The truth is, fake people can only hold up an act for so long. Eventually, the cracks show. Eventually, the mask slips. Eventually, their motives leak through. And when that happens, don't get bitter. Get grateful. Because clarity is a blessing. Knowing someone's true character saves you years of wasted loyalty. I think sometimes we pray for God to bring good people into our lives, but we forget that also means He has to remove the bad ones, and removal never feels good in the moment. It feels like loss, but long term, it's gain. He can't fill your hands with the right people if you're still holding tightly to the wrong ones. And let me say this, it's not always dramatic. Sometimes God reveals fake people in quiet ways. A conversation that rubs you wrong, a pattern of broken promises, a gut feeling you can't shake, that's not paranoia, that's discernment. God gave you intuition for a reason. Don't dismiss it. But here's the part most people don't like to hear. Sometimes the fake person God is revealing is you. Maybe you weren't showing up authentically. Maybe you were wearing a mask to fit in. Maybe you weren't as loyal as you thought. And God lets certain situations expose you to yourself so you can grow, so you can heal, so you can stop being the very thing you dislike in others. That kind of exposure is painful, but it's necessary. At the end of the day, the way God reveals fake people is always tied to your protection and your purpose. He doesn't do it to make you lonely. He doesn't do it to punish you. He does it to free you, to protect your peace, to prepare you for the next level. And when you start trusting that process, you stop panicking when someone walks away. You stop forcing connections. You stop begging for loyalty because you realize if God showed them to be fake, then their exit was the answer to a prayer you didn't even know you prayed. So the next time someone leaves, betrays you, or shows their true colors, don't let bitterness take root. Don't let anger consume you. Instead, take a step back and say, "Thank you, God, for the revelation," because He saw something you didn't. And what He reveals is always for your good. The truth is, not everyone who starts with you is meant to finish with you. And that's okay. You don't need everyone. You just need the right ones. And the right ones don't need masks, don't need pretense, don't need hidden motives. They show up real. They show up consistent. They show up with love. And that's how you'll know. In the end, let God do the revealing. Let Him do the removing. Let Him do the replacing. Your only job is to pay attention, trust the signs, and never fight to keep what He's already released. Because peace is worth more than pretense. And the people who are real will never have to be revealed. They'll prove themselves every single day. When you think about how God reveals fake people, one of the most overlooked ways is through timing. Timing exposes truth. People who can only love you in certain seasons. People who can only support you when it benefits them. People who disappear the moment the spotlight isn't on them. That's timing at work. And God uses timing like a filter. When things are slow, quiet, unglamorous, the fakes fade. But when things start to rise, when opportunity shows up, they come running. Not because they care about you, but because they care about what's happening around you. And God lets that cycle play out again and again until you finally recognize the difference between someone who loves you and someone who loves the benefits of being around you. It's not easy because fake people don't wear labels. They don't walk around with a sign on their forehead saying, "Don't trust me." They smile, they laugh, they hug you. They use words like brother, sister, best friend. And that's why it's dangerous to rely only on appearances. That's why you need God's discernment. Because He sees what you don't. He knows what conversations happen when you're not in the room. He knows the thoughts behind the handshake. He knows what their heart looks like when no one else is watching. And if you pay attention, He gives you glimpses of that truth so you're not blindsided later. Sometimes God will test the people around you, and it looks like He's testing you. You go through a hard season. You lose a job. You hit a health issue. You're struggling in silence. And in those moments, God watches who stays, who checks on you, who disappears. Because fakes don't last in the fire. They don't sit in the valley with you. They're only built for the mountaintop. And the test wasn't to break you. It was to expose them. Other times, God blesses you beyond what you expected. Suddenly, you're in a better financial place. You're achieving things you once only dreamed about, and the blessings become a mirror. They reflect how others really feel. People who were loud in your struggle become silent in your success. People who were supportive when you were down become jealous when you're up. That's exposure. That's God showing you who can handle your growth and who can't. There's another layer to this: opportunities. Watch how people react when doors open for you. Genuine people celebrate. Fake people minimize it, act unimpressed, or secretly wish it had been them. And God doesn't hide that from you. He lets you feel the energy shift. He lets you notice the silence in the room. Because the truth is, your elevation doesn't create their envy. It reveals it. One of the hardest pills to swallow is realizing that not everyone clapping for you actually wants you to win. Some clap just enough to blend in, but their heart is far from celebration. And God has a way of letting that truth slip through their actions. Maybe they make backhanded compliments. Maybe they suddenly stop inviting you. Maybe they only show up to take, not give. And when you look closely, the pattern is there. That's God's way of putting a spotlight on behavior you would have overlooked otherwise. We don't like it because it forces us to make decisions. It forces us to let go. And letting go isn't comfortable. It feels like betrayal, but it's actually protection. Think about it. If someone can walk away after being revealed, were they ever really with you in the first place? Loyalty doesn't vanish when tested. Love doesn't fade under pressure. Respect doesn't disappear when convenience ends. What's real lasts. What's fake is temporary. And here's another truth. Sometimes fake people reveal themselves by how much they need to talk about loyalty. Real ones don't need to announce it. They show it. They live it. They prove it. But fake people will preach loyalty, promise the world, and the moment a better option comes along, they switch sides. That's why you don't put all your trust in words. You wait for consistency. You let time reveal. Because words can be rehearsed, but patterns don't lie. God uses betrayal as a teacher. As painful as it feels, betrayal sharpens your vision. It wakes you up. It reminds you that not everyone with access deserves trust. And sometimes the very person you gave the most access to is the very person God exposes the hardest, because the closer they are, the more dangerous the fake becomes. That's why exposure feels devastating. But what if devastation is actually deliverance? What if the heartbreak was the very thing that saved you from future destruction? That's the way God works. What looks like a breakdown is actually a breakthrough. Another layer to how God reveals people is through alignment. Pay attention to who supports your values, your growth, your faith. If someone constantly pulls you away from who you're becoming, if they mock your goals, dismiss your standards, or drag you back into the habits you've outgrown, God is showing you they're not aligned with your destiny. And the longer you ignore that, the longer you stay stuck in places you were never meant to stay. Because fake isn't just about pretending to like you, it's also about pretending to support your growth while secretly pulling you back. And sometimes God lets people leave without you ever fully understanding why. No argument, no betrayal, no big blow up. Just distance, silence, absence. And you're left confused. But here's the thing. Confusion for you doesn't mean confusion for God. He knows what conversations you didn't hear. He knows what plans were being made behind your back. He knows what energy they were carrying into your space. And by removing them, even without explanation, he was answering a prayer you didn't even know you prayed. One of the biggest mistakes we make is thinking loss is always the enemy. We grieve people God removed as if they were meant to stay forever. But not every relationship is meant to be permanent. Some are seasonal. Some are lessons. Some are stepping stones. And when the season ends, holding on too tightly only keeps you from what's next. That's why God sometimes forces the reveal, because you wouldn't let go otherwise. Think back over your life. The people you lost, the ones who left, the ones who were exposed. At the time, it hurt, but later, didn't it make sense? Didn't you look back and say, I see why that ended. I see why they left. I see why God showed me. That's because time has a way of making revelation clear. And what didn't make sense then will eventually prove itself to be divine protection. God also reveals fake people through peace. Ever notice how some people leave and suddenly your spirit feels lighter? The weight lifts. The room feels calmer. That's not coincidence. That's clarity. That's God showing you that their presence was chaos, chaos disguised as company. And now that they're gone, you see the difference. That's one of the most underrated ways God reveals people, through the peace that follows their absence. But here's where it gets personal. You have to trust the process enough not to chase, because the enemy will whisper, maybe you overreacted. Maybe you should reconnect. Maybe you should try again. And if you're not careful, you'll reopen a door God locked for your protection. Sometimes closure is not a conversation, it's obedience. Sometimes you don't need to explain yourself, you just need to accept the revelation and move forward. And this is hard because sometimes the fake people God reveals are the ones you love most. Family, childhood friends, people you thought would never change. And when that happens, it shakes you to your core. But don't confuse familiarity with loyalty. Just because someone's been in your life a long time doesn't mean they've been for you the whole time. God knows the difference, and He reveals it when the time is right. That doesn't mean you walk around bitter. It doesn't mean you hold grudges. It means you let people be who they are, but you no longer give them the access they abused. Forgiveness doesn't equal access. Grace doesn't equal closeness. You can love someone from a distance once God shows you their truth. And that's maturity, trusting the revelation without becoming hardened by it. The real danger isn't fake people, it's ignoring the signs. Because God doesn't just reveal once. He repeats the lesson until you finally learn it. That uneasy feeling, that broken trust, that subtle jealousy. Those aren't random, they're warnings. And the more you ignore them, the louder the lessons get. Until eventually you can't deny it anymore. You want to know something powerful? Even fake people play a role in your destiny. Judas had to betray Jesus to fulfill prophecy. Joseph's brothers had to sell him for him to reach the palace. Fake people, as painful as they are, often push you into places you never would have gone without them. And God uses that. He turns their betrayal into your blessing, their fake support into your growth, their departure into your redirection. That's why you don't fight it. You let God write the story, even the parts that sting. And here's the last thing I'll say about this. When God reveals fake people, it's not just about loss. It's about making room. He doesn't expose without replacing. He doesn't remove without restoring. But you can't experience the replacement if you keep chasing what was removed. That's why revelation is both painful and freeing. It forces you to release so your hands are open for what's next. So when God shows you who's fake, don't argue with the revelation. Don't bargain with it. Don't dismiss it. Receive it, respect it, act on it, because at the end of the day, He sees what you don't. And if He pulled back the curtain, it's because you needed to see what was really behind it. When you step back and look at the bigger picture, the thread that runs through all of this is simple. God doesn't reveal fake people to punish you. He does it to protect you. Every time someone's mask slips, every time their actions don't line up with their words, every time their absence hurts more than their presence ever helped, that's God answering a prayer you didn't even know you prayed. It's not rejection, it's redirection. It's not about being paranoid or mistrusting everyone around you. It's about being wise enough to notice when God highlights something that you couldn't have seen on your own. What you need to remember is this: the exposure is a gift. It may sting in the moment. It may break your heart to realize someone wasn't who you thought they were. But long term, it saves you years of wasted energy, misplaced trust, and unnecessary pain. And if you really think back, you'll see that the people you lost, the ones who walked away, the ones God revealed, always made space for something better. Better peace, better alignment, better relationships. You don't have to force people to stay. You don't have to beg for loyalty. You don't have to keep patching up what God is trying to let fall apart. The people who are real won't need constant convincing. They won't need to be tested over and over. They'll prove themselves with consistency, with love, with presence. And the ones who can't, let them go. Release them without bitterness. Forgive them without reopening the door. Bless them without keeping them close. That's how you protect your peace and honor God's revelation. The truth is, not everyone who starts with you is meant to finish with you. And that's not a loss. It's part of the journey. God knows your heart. He knows your future. And He knows who belongs on the road with you. So trust the signs. Trust the intuition He gave you. Trust the silence after someone leaves. Because every exposure is a reminder that God sees what you don't. So the next time someone shows their true colors, don't let it break you. Let it build you. Don't see it as betrayal. See it as clarity. And don't mourn the removal. Thank God for the revelation. Because at the end of the day, what's real will never need to be revealed, and what's fake will never be able to hide for long.